Hello, Gut Check Project fans and KBMD Health family. It's time for episode number 68. I'm your host, Eric Rieger, joined by my awesome co-host, Dr. Kenneth Brown. Ken, what's up?
What's going on, everybody? Episode 68. This is going to be a very exciting one because we're going to talk about something brand new, and that is Atrantil-PRO. This is a physician-only line, and initially I was tasked to try and come up with a 3-minute or so video to be a teaching video for all our functional medicine people out there, nutritionists, dietitians, chiropractors, doctors, all the people that understand the concept of treating the whole body. Most of them already know what Atrantil is.
Sure. And
now we're going to bring in something specifically for them that's kind of a kick up, but there's so much science. I don't know how to get 3 minutes, how to turn, like an encyclopedia's worth of stuff that's out there into 3 minutes that says this is what this does. So I thought we would try it on the podcast.
So basically we need to make a pencil out of a log, and we have the log, so we're going to try to whittle it down a little bit. But there's a lot of info here. And honestly, I'm really excited when you said it's time for us to have this discussion. A lot of people may not know, this is over 2.5 years in the making, because we don't want to just put out something that's not worth your time, because our reputation with Atrantil is on the line. We've got great loyalty and results with this. We didn't want to just rush out and put another sticker or label on something else.
I mean, I don't want to digress too much, but can you let's talk about how we ended up coming up with this? Because I think it's a pretty good story. It's that whole, how we made it kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. So 2.5 years ago, we were at a functional medicine conference, and what do you know it, the chief medical direction officer, I mean, he wore like 19 different hats there, but Krishnan, he essentially met us there. We went to dinner, and he told us.
Well, first, it's episode 16. We did a podcast with them.
Oh, well, yeah, we hadn't gotten that far.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So, as Ken already threw it forward, we met him there, and then I guess we did go to, you know what? I was wrong. We actually shot the podcast first before we went to dinner.
Yeah, because we had so much fun with him. He's like, we should go to dinner.
Yeah, you threw me off. I screwed that up. But anyhow.
Talk about dinner. Anyways, we had a podcast, episode 16. Check it out. It's with Dr. Krishnan, PhD microbiologist. But dinner, your story, go.
It was great. It was a great dinner. No, but we were picking apart a lot of the information that he'd shared with us during the podcast, not just during the functional medicine conference. We began to just kind of wonder, could we actually piece our two products together and not only come up with something that could perform a little bit better, but would it carry value to a consumer, a patient? And hands down, I think the answer is absolutely yes.
I myself was pretty excited when we had dinner with Kieran and we were talking about it, and he's like, hey, I really think we need to team up. So their company, Microbiome Labs, which has a product that a lot of people are familiar with called Megaspore, came up with a unique blend for us called Mega Trio that they're calling, and we're going to get into all that science. And I was kind of blown away that I liked it, what we learned then. I've learned so much more since, and that's what we want to share today.
Yeah, Kieran doesn't mess around either. The coolest thing is the blend that he put together. He just knows so much about the science, the physiology of what these particular probiotics will do. And I think if you're a long-term user of Atrantil and you've paid attention to what we've talked about or how we've introduced Atrantil to different people and physicians, you may say, wait a second, did they just mention probiotics and Atrantil? There is a very unique difference between these probiotics and how they are delivered versus virtually every other form of probiotics.
Correct. So this is the podcast essentially is going to be talking about the beautiful science of polyphenols and probiotics. And so that's what we're going to try and talk about today. So kind of there's a lot to unpack here.
Well, so let's get started real quick. Why did you think we brought up probiotics? What was different about Kieran's probiotics versus all the others?
So if you have a problem like bacterial overgrowth, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, there are studies that have shown that when you take traditional probiotics, especially lactobacillus, which most of them are, that it can actually exacerbate your symptoms. You can have more bloating, you can have more issues, more brain fog. There was also a study that came out that showed that those people that take probiotics actually produce more lactic acid, and it goes and crosses the blood-brain barrier, resulting in anxiety. So if you happen to be one of these people that bloats after you eat, and then you are noticing that you're in a brain fog, you have some more anxiety as possible, you may have bacterial overgrowth. So by the time that I see people in my clinic, they have tried many probiotics and they're worse and worse and worse. So I said, we're going to stop the probiotics. We're going to stop some fermented foods. And that's pretty much what I tell all my patients. Now we have the ability to say, no, now we have something that Mother Nature intended to go with Atrantil. And that's what Kieran explained to us, spore-based bacteria.
The bacteria that we benefit from when we are young kids are actually, they get in our mouths because they're spores.
They're soil-based. So if you hear spore, it's funny because when I try and tell my patients, I hear a lot of interesting comments, almost like, oh, cool, like sci-fi, like spore. And I'm like, well, no, kind of sci-fi, because when you learn about it, it's pretty cool. Or they think spores, oh no, spores are bad. Isn't that like fungal spores or things like that? No. Basically, bacteria defend themselves in several ways. One, they can have cilia and they move away. One, they can have a long tail called a flagella and they swim away. And spores, what happens is if the bacteria are in an environment that is inhospitable to them, or it may kill them, these particular species have the ability to make a hard shell and just kind of go into hibernation. And they wait until they're around the right environment with the proper amount of food, and they wake up, they come out of their spore, and then they start sending signals around, recruiting other bacteria, making sure that they control their environment. And the way that they love to control their environment is proper nutrients and also proper microbial diversity. And we're going to get into all of that.
Honestly, it's amazing. And we had hours of discussion specifically around that with Kieran, both on the podcast, episode 16, and at dinner, and now for 2.5 years leading up to the launch of Atrantil-PRO.
Yeah, exactly. So before we jump into all that, because there's a lot of science with that, I just am remiss whenever I see something brand new that involves us that I need to discuss. An article just came out 2 days ago. The title is Flavonoids May Reduce Mortality Risk for People with Parkinson's Disease. The bottom line is flavonoids are larger polyphenols. And so what they're talking about is how these polyphenols reduce it. Parkinson's affects 10 million people. What it does is it makes it so that the brain cannot produce enough dopamine as a neurotransmitter. And then that results in shaking, inability to walk, and a shortened lifespan due to many different reasons. I think Michael J. Fox is probably the most known spokesperson.
Sure.
Yeah. What they showed in this study, looking at about 2,000 people, is that if you took the equivalent of close to 673 milligrams of polyphenols, you had a 70% greater chance of living longer than those people that didn't. So that's pretty impressive. And then I found a 2005 study where they looked at mice, specifically asking the question, how do dietary polyphenols protect dopamine neurons? And what they showed is the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects helped protect the dopamine-producing neurons that these researchers were trying to damage. So they speculated that polyphenols should be looked at, this is 2005, should be looked at for possible treatment of Parkinson's disease. So two interesting things involving polyphenols, and we always like to talk about it. So if it comes out in the news, I'm at least going to bring it up real quick.
So just real quick, just to recap. So with Parkinson's, flavonoids, it doesn't matter if you have Parkinson's or not, you could technically benefit, your dopaminergic neurons could technically benefit from having them available and preventing that kind of damage.
Certainly if you have any chance of having damage. So if you're, in anything, trauma or anything, then most definitely that can be affecting the dopaminergic neurons. What I didn't get into in the study is they referenced, the reason why they chose to look at this is they referenced a different study which showed that people that took flavonoids had less of a chance of developing Parkinson's, so front and back end related to Parkinson's. But we always talk about this in the setting of dementia and Alzheimer's. We talk a lot about that. So this is, I feel like we're, that's my why. I want to protect the brain through the gut.
I think that we are getting really, really close to being able to do it where it's more of a natural occurrence with making the correct types of selections for supplements and foods. So
Yeah,
Right on.
and this is so I appreciate everybody that tunes into the podcast, Gut Check Project. Stuff like this, we really would encourage everybody to share. Hopefully you'll learn something about this. So let's just jump right in. This is almost going to be a little bit more of a science-y type podcast, but sometimes that's what you need because this is really cool science. All right, so let's just jump in. So like I mentioned, the problem is I got to figure out how to describe all the stuff that we're going to talk about and see if I can make it into a condensed video. And so rather than tackle that, I'm doing the Flow Research Collective. I'm working on my goals, and they talk about you must visualize the end goal, but you have to take incremental steps and understand that each step is supposed to do something. So this is step one, make however long this is going to be, and then try and come down. Okay, here we go. All right, so if anybody that's new, hasn't heard this before, Atrantil is a blend of 3 polyphenols that have been scientifically proven to reduce the symptoms of IBS, like gas, abdominal pain, constipation, and diarrhea. And we also know that these polyphenols in Atrantil have been shown to be the anti-aging and anti-inflammatory molecules in the Mediterranean diet. Now, listen to this part carefully. These same polyphenols have been scientifically proven to reduce inflammation by decreasing TNF-alpha and decreasing the NF-kappa beta pathway. It has also been shown to increase microbial diversity and increase short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and decrease harmful bacteria while increasing helpful bacteria like Akkermansia. Now, let's examine the megatrio combination of 3 bacteria, Subtilis, coagulans, and what's the third one? We have Subtilis. I always forget one. Subtilis, coagulans.
Bacillus Clausy.
Yeah. Clausy. I always feel bad for Clausy. I always forget to say Clausy.
Honestly, I had to squint really hard to make sure I said it the right way.
It's a tiny label. I just realized that. I'm like, I'm over 50. I ain't reading that. All right. So now let's examine the combination. One more time. Bacillus Clausy. You get first bidding this time because I usually say Bacillus subtilis and then Bacillus coagulans. 3 very specifically chosen spore-based biotics that looks like it was meant to be with Atrantil this whole time. All right, so those strains, they have clinical studies that have been clinically proven to help reduce with diarrhea, decrease inflammatory markers like interleukin-6, IL-6, reverse antibiotic-associated dysbiosis, and reverse intestinal permeability or leaky gut per clinical trials. That's what we talked about over dinner. I was like, wow, we do this, you guys do this. If we put it together, it's like a Reese's peanut butter cup or whatever. Now, remember that paragraph I said before. It's going to sound sciencey and redundant because it is sciencey and redundant. These same bacteria have been scientifically proven, to help reduce inflammation by decreasing TNF-alpha and decreasing the NF-kappa beta pathway. They have also been shown to increase microbial diversity, increase short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, and decrease harmful bacteria while increasing helpful bacteria like Akkermansia. So I just repeated myself because that's fascinating. When we developed Atrantil, we did this. When they figured out how to appropriately make these spore-based bacteria, they did this. And then I realized, wow, we've got this big middle area that we both do.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to see is, do we cancel that out or do we synergistically improve it? And spoiler alert, it gets synergistically totally improved. And that's what I want to talk about. Because if you know Atrantil and you know Megaspore, you're like, all right, how is this different? This is what's wild. And this is what is so exciting about doing a podcast like this, that you get to do these deeper dives and you are learning so much stuff. And it's super exciting. So, let's start with something really quick. What was it, episode 49 that we had Sylvia on?
Ooh, number-wise, I don't know, but I remember Sylvia being on.
So we had Dr. Sylvia Molino, who did her research, and just keep this in mind because these studies go into it. She showed that when quebracho and chestnut Atrantil is digested, it does not get absorbed into the upper abdomen. It rides all the way down to the colon, where then bacteria, especially good bacteria, like the kind of bacteria that you want there, can break down the larger molecules, the quebracho and the chestnut, into smaller phenolic molecules. And some of those people have heard of like quercetin. So in other words, quercetin is hidden in there if you have the right bacteria. And then coumaric acid is hidden in there if you have the right bacteria. Green tea, e.g. CG, same thing. So keep that in mind. So she showed in her research how the bacteria is needed to get the most benefit out of this. So
I think that's something that's interesting and kind of beating around the bush a little bit, but spores are protected until they get to the colon. Another really, really cool thing about quebracho, which housed all those polyphenols that you just listed, protect all of those smaller polyphenolic compounds that people are familiar with, such as EGCG and the others, until they get to the colon. And then when they are in the right environment, they are broken down where they are the most effective in the colon. This combination is a natural, seriously, it is a natural combination that works well.
Oh, it's crazy. It's a natural, we enhance each other.
100%.
And that's what we're going to, okay, so for instance, let's start with this. This is an interesting article because I get asked about probiotics all the time. And this article came out because they wanted to evaluate, these scientists, what happens to coffee as it goes through the digestive process. And the reason why they chose coffee is because, as it turns out, the majority of polyphenols that most Americans get isn't from vegetables. It's actually from coffee and tea. And so you want to know what's happening with this. So these guys are smart enough to realize and go, let's check the polyphenol count of coffee, and then let's see if we can put a probiotic in there.
Oh, see if it lasts.
And see if it lasts.
Okay.
And see what happens. And then check the polyphenol count again. So that's what this study's about. So basically, they brewed coffee, and then they looked at the coffee and how much polyphenols there were, and they had X number. And then they took the spore-based biotic called Bacillus coagulans, mixed it in with the coffee, dry coffee grounds, and then they brewed it. And so they have the pot of coffee, and then they checked to see how much of the bacteria was left and viable. As it turns out, 95% of the spores were still there and still viable.
That sounds pretty good.
Then they took the coffee with the spore biotics and they digested it in the stomach. And then they digested it, continued through the small bowel. 2 different steps. And when it got to the colon, 95% still had viable spores. 95% before it entered the colon. Then, much to their surprise, and they got very excited about this, when the coffee made it into the colon, they analyzed that, and what they found was there was many more phenolic compounds than when the coffee was digested alone.
So it was basically exposing and making more polyphenols available.
Making more polyphenols available, which is super exciting because that's what you want. You want to be able to break these molecules down.
Nice.
And what they noticed also was the complete proliferation of the spore-based outperformed what they were thinking. And it continued because they speculated that the bacteria loved to ride to the colon with the polyphenol.
Makes sense, though. It's almost like this is the fuel for the journey.
Yes. And so to finalize it, and this is the part that everyone really should hear because these are the kind of studies that make you go, what was that 90s song? Things that make you go,
Oh, I don't remember who sang that, but yeah.
Anyways, so then what they said is, okay, well, let's see what happens if we take a traditional lactobacillus bacteria. And they said they chose a common, over-the-counter, popular brand. They put it in with the coffee. They brewed the coffee, and they checked to see how much of there was viable probiotic left. Wild guess?
Less than 20%.
0. It all died during the heating
Brewing?
process.
Wow.
Yeah, just the brewing.
Wow, that's not very good.
No, it's not. But okay, well that's fine. But you're not gonna heat a probiotic up that much. That makes sense. So they said, okay, well let's not even do that. Let's take cold coffee, put the probiotic in, and then digest that. They put it in the stomach, and then they checked to see how much viable lactobacillus there was. 0%.
That's not very good.
And then they said, okay, well wait a minute. We're giving everybody probiotics, but in our study, we gave it a vehicle to help it, and and it died in the stomach. So then they put it through the small bowel and it died there. And so it never really made it to the colon is the bottom line. The interesting part is the speculation, and this is what people have asked me before, that we know that Atrantil can get rid of bad bacteria and feed the good bacteria. The part that I wanted to write these authors and go, is it possible that we know that the heat probably killed it, but I mean, some of them should have survived, but is it possible that the polyphenols were built to function with spore-based ones, not live active ones?
Yeah.
Because that's not what you're going to find in nature with soil and plant.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was just speculating that. I wanted to try and hit these guys up and ask more questions because I love that kind of research where they were like, and then we decided this, and then we decided this.
You know, the loss of viability, though, makes you wonder whenever you see all of the probiotics in certain different stores that have been refrigerated. Then you begin to wonder, well, my core temperature is much warmer than a refrigerator. So
100%.
Are they even staying active by the time that you've ingested them? Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. So it didn't hurt my feelings. We don't have ownership in a traditional probiotic company, but I did kind of make me go, okay, well, this is making sense why this stuff really doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so another article, different group. These guys were published in the Journal of Science Food Technology. They saw that. They saw the other work that was being done, and they said, you know what, that whole coffee idea is really cool. Let's take it to the next level. And so what these guys did is that knowing that coffee has a lot of polyphenols, what they did is they took the spent coffee grounds, so brewed coffee grounds, and then they just threw some Bacillus clausii in there, the one that I always seem to forget. So Subtilis coagulans and clausii. I don't know why I keep forgetting him because it did this really, really, really cool thing. So what we just told you before makes a little bit of sense. So what they did is they checked the same thing, the polyphenolic content of the coffee grounds, and then they just added the bacillus and came back and said, let's check it again in a few days or whatever. That was it. And what they were able to show, it's super cool because they had a tremendous increase, 36% increase in the total number of polyphenolic compounds that were actually kicked off. Then they said, hey, what are all these polyphenols doing? Like, so what if that's so many of them? They said, okay, well, let's check the antioxidant capability, the ORAC potential on the coffee grounds, and let's compare it to the coffee grounds that have been fermented. As it turns out, it was a tremendous increase, as you would expect. So in other words, the spore-based clausii, Bacillus clausii, plus the polyphenols in the coffee increased the antioxidant effect like exponentially.
And just to keep everybody up, if you want a high ORAC score, of course you do, because that is going to help your body eliminate damage and increase repair. Anytime that you can have a good scavenger of free radicals, which is exactly what antioxidants do. So that's obviously a huge benefit.
So then they're like, wow, this is exciting. So these guys are getting excited. They're like, I wonder what the antimicrobial effect is. So they checked the antimicrobial effect against harmful bacteria. Strep, they had a bunch of them. Salmonella, strep, a bunch of those things. And what they showed was that the ability to kill gram negatives and gram positives was significantly better with the coffee plus the Bacillus clausii than it was with just the coffee. And the coffee had its own ability to kill bad bacteria. So that's super exciting because I already said in the very beginning that both of these guys have been shown to increase microbial diversity and increase good bacteria. Now these guys are proving, not only that, but if you're exposed to bad bacteria, you have a higher likelihood of getting rid of it with the combination.
Wow. So we really haven't run into a whole lot of bad news yet.
No. And so at this point, you're just like, wait a minute. This is weird. This is so weird that two things just hook up and all of a sudden it's an improvement. So I got really curious about that part. So I had to go back a little bit in the literature, but this has all been done. A lot of it, like this is 2006, this article was. I'm so used to putting my filters on, 2019 forward because medicine, changes so quick, but you forget that there's a lot of bacterial literature. There is a lot of traditional bench research that once you start learning more, you reach back and go, oh, pow, makes sense. All right, 2 studies, same concept. Basically, they took Bacillus species, and in this first one, it is production of tannase through submerged fermentation of tannin-containing plant extracts by, this one is Bacillus licheniformis, which is in the same Bacillus family. But they were looking at this because they wanted to see. And what they did show is that there are certain, in the intro, there are certain Bacillus species which have the natural ability to break down tannins. Tannins are the largest, most stable polyphenols in Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. Tannins are long chains of proanthocyanidins, which are large combinations of polyphenols, which are smaller polyphenols coming together. Tannins are the mothership. And Quebracho Colorado is the largest, most stable tannin, according to certain experts that we've worked with. I imagine there's somebody doing research somewhere, and I would love it if you hit me up and said, no, there's a better one.
Did you know that tannins are really just like nature's protectant? Like they really are the armor.
Yeah.
You know, like a sequoia, like the gigantic trees. So when conifers and things like that, the cones only open and can germinate whenever there's actually a forest fire, believe it or not. And the tree...
Really?
Yeah. The tree can survive because the tannins are so strong on the outside of the tree that that's actually what prevents the sequoia from burning down. So, in other words, I'm just illustrating that tannins they're hard to break down. You've got to have something like you said, tannase, which means it's the enzymes for tannins to make that available, and this particular spore has it.
Yeah. So I found this other article that this was in Microbial Cell Factories. It's a group of scientists looked at this, and what they showed is that they wanted to see what would happen if they submerged Bacillus subtilis, number 3 in our mega trio combo. They wanted to see if they submerged Bacillus subtilis with a large tannin, what would happen and what was going to happen. I love this part in the intro. Very few bacteria have high levels of tannase activity. One being Bacillus licheniformis, the one that I just said. Mm-hmm. The other with higher tannase capabilities is Bacillus subtilis, which is why we chose Bacillus subtilis.
Yeah, right on.
Which that was exciting to see.
It is exciting.
And so basically what they showed is very quickly and very effectively, the tannin was broken down, and they wanted to know if it was broken down into certain types of polyphenols, and what they wanted to see was, can it produce gallic acid? And the reason why they chose that is because that's like a downstream polyphenol. If you can produce gallic acid, then I know that you produced quercetin, then I know that you produced EGCG, then I know that you produced this, because to get to the gallic acid part, you got to break it all the way down to there.
That is fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And the fact that they chose the Bacillus subtilis as the one, because it has the highest tannase capability, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? Kieran is real smart. He has a PhD. Dang.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Sorry, Kieran, that he had to wait till now to decide that. I was pretty savvy at the beginning. I figured you were pretty smart.
Yeah. So teaming up and adding Megatrio to Atrantil literally is like Mother Nature wanted it. So I've been trying to think about how to do this visually, and somebody send me in a better way to do this, but I was thinking about it here. So what we have, and according to these studies, is that essentially Atrantil-PRO is this. This is a large polyphenol.
Okay.
And this is Atrantil. This is Quebracho and chestnut. Large polyphenol. Gets ingested. It doesn't get absorbed right away. What it does do is it does soak up gas, because think of it like a container. It soaks up gas. It grabs the bad bacteria and says, you guys got to get out of here, hop in. And then it drives down to the colon, where then it gets broken down. And so I just realized I'm implying that you're going to have to poop something like this. This is not at all. It's okay. This is already a bad visual. I get that. But this is what I thought of like right before the show. All right, never mind. So anyways, this goes to the colon where it gets broken down. So now visualize this. We have added.
He has a box of gloves.
I have a box. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you're only listening, I have a box of gloves. We have added. What's that thing that people are doing where they play it really close to the.
I don't know if it has a name, but you did it.
Where people do random things close on a microphone.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. The Atrantil is housing the mega trio that are in here. It protects it, and it doesn't really even need to be protected, but it rides along. What's fascinating is once it gets to the ileum, almost to the colon, the spores sense a better environment. They wake up, as Kieran described, and the first thing they do is they have to be fed to continue the germination process. So what happens is they wake up and they look around and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a tannin.
Right.
I've got all this enzyme to,
break this down,
and I'll get energy and you'll be happy. So what it does is they start breaking down the large stable polyphenol into what these other studies were implying, smaller phenolic compounds. And even then they showed that some of them were larger that will later be broken down by other bacteria if you have the right microbiome. So they're kicking out all these things. So now you've got all these smaller phenolic compounds in the colon, which once again, people have heard of them. This is quercetin, this is green tea, this isn't polyphenol, but this is urolithin A, which is a good thing also. You can read about that.
Definitely.
So then these smaller phenolic compounds, we saw in this other study that the antioxidant potential went way up. It makes sense because now we don't just have one giant box, we've got a bunch of smaller polyphenols that other bacteria love, and they can break them down. In fact, studies have shown that green tea itself, when you, there was a study, you got so many studies that I don't want to overwhelm, but one of them looked at how green tea doesn't get absorbed and gets broken down into what they found 25 different molecules. So this is actually green tea that becomes this later. This is how important it is to make sure that you have the proper microbiome. And so this rides with Atrantil down to the colon. It wakes up. It helps the tannins become smaller, more helpful things. More bacteria get to do this. You have a higher increase in phenolic compounds. You have a higher increase in antioxidants, which then makes total sense why we already talked about how these do amazing things on their own, but together it truly is essentially an exponential growth. Like, I couldn't believe it when I'm reading this because we thought we were coming out with something really good because they both do good things. They're megaspore biotic and they're going to come up with mega trio. And now I'm realizing, no, these guys absolutely do this. This is the soil. This is the plant. They've been doing this since the dawn of time. Only makes sense. Every single time we start diving into Mother Nature, she always does it better.
There is no doubt. I completely agree with that. And I'm pretty impressed with your visual. If you had to listen to all that, you're going to have to go and check out the video version.
I was literally scoping with Anna. And I'm like, man, I gotta meet Eric. And I'm like, give me a visual of what to do. And she's like, I don't know, box of gloves, start throwing the gloves around. And I was like, done.
Nice work, Anna. Well, so what you just did is you broke down everything in terms of the research that's been discussed now for well over, and what are we going on now? 31 months since we were first introduced to this entire idea. So, and that's the research, that's the papers, that's the studies. Let's bring it home to actual use. I have been on Atrantil regular now since 2015. Before I had this, I had IBS.
You're holding Atrantil.
Yeah, before I had this,
before Atrantil.
Yeah, I had IBS, and by this, yes, Ken's right. I'm holding Atrantil, and I've been taking regular Atrantil now since 2015, and it's been a lifesaver. So, to kind of describe that, on my way to work, on my way on vacation to go visit friends, any familiar route I already knew where the coolest bathrooms and cleanest bathrooms were in hotels, in hospitals, in gas stations, which ones that I could go to that if I had an emergency, and if you've ever suffered, you know what I'm talking about, which one I'd have easy access to get into, not a whole lot of lines, but semi-clean, et cetera. Well, how I knew that Atrantil was working is finally, after I started, a few months had gone by and I realized I wasn't even thinking about this internal roadmap in my head that was keeping up with where every stinking bathroom was.
It's crazy that you adapted that easy and found that normal for your day.
When you have that problem, it just sucks because who wants to deal with that? No one. You want to live, a normal life. And then finally I realized that wasn't a big pressure for me. So fast forward now to this combination. Without getting into too many details, I can attest now for 3 months utilizing Pro, as much as Atrantil has been great, not just good, but great for me, Pro is better. Everything just simply works better. I sleep well. I don't have difficulty sleeping. I'll just say I sleep better.
So we're purposely doing this as a physician-only product, and because it's really, there's a lot that can be taught about this. So if you happen to be one of our functional medicine doctors that watches this, the ability to explain this to a patient and say this, it makes sense. It's scientifically backed. All the studies are there. We know that Atrantil works, and they know Megaspore works, or Just Thrive, I guess is their over-the-counter version.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just Thrive.
Just Thrive, that works. What we really want is to really spread the message that, okay, because I'm going to tell you that I'm going to improve your microbial diversity. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to increase your butyrate. That's going to help with overall gut health. We know that all health begins and ends in the gut. What we're going to do is take it up a notch. We're going to take these blah, blah. You see that the science is there, and I test everything out on patients when I talk to them, and almost all the time they're like, get me the Pro then. I'm like, okay. And then I'll just go to Full Script or Emerson Ecologics, both, right?
Yeah, Emerson and Full Script, both.
Emerson and Full Script. And I just order it for my patient. It gets shipped right to them, and there it is. So if you are a non-healthcare practitioner and listening to this podcast, just go talk to your doctor and say, hey, if you're on Atrantil and want to try, a different slightly mechanism of action that we're talking about here, then just ask your doctor. Say, hey, would you mind prescribing this to me? Or tell your doctor about it for us so that we can get them. And if you're a healthcare provider, contact us and we'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? In the show notes, we'll be certain to put in a contact link so that you can link up with Friendly Jenny at KBS, who handles Atrantil and connecting people. And maybe if you're a healthcare practitioner yourself, then she can help you get linked up with Dacia, and who can send this directly to your office or get you signed up so that you can have it shipped to your patients. And if you just happen to be someone who's not a healthcare practitioner, maybe we can help link you up with somebody who could do that.
Absolutely, because this is something that I really feel like is I love it, man. It's the evolution of where we're going with this, and the beauty to meet super intelligent people like Dr. Kiran Krishnan and go to meetings like the IFM, the Functional Medicine Society, and meeting people that are saying, I'm a doctor, I can give drugs, let's work on lifestyle, let's work on whatever. And what this does is this helps the second genome in your body, which is your microbiome.
You know what was really cool too, beyond the product, beyond the science of Kiran Krishnan and his entire team that he brought with him, they're just altruistic, great people. They were in it for the right reasons. They were excited when they got good results, not because it was going to be some boon or this, that, and the other. They were helping people. And that was, at the very, very beginning, I felt like this could be a great combination because they have the same motives that we do.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and make no mistake, we're going to blow up Karen's inbox and say, you got to watch this. Because I'm hoping Karen goes, why didn't I think of that? And then he's going to be like, you idiot, I told you exactly all this stuff over dinner. And you were like, and just shoving your face.
We had some really good sushi.
Don't give me a lecture while I'm eating good sushi.
Yeah.
That's the moral of that story.
Pretty much.
I have a feeling you'll literally say, I even quoted those articles to you. And you just nodded.
Yeah. Like we're doing right now.
But that's what you get when you hang out with PhDs. They're just a step above.
Well, so recap, Atrantil, still available over the counter. Atrantil-PRO, brand new, over 2.5 years in the making, utilizing our very well trusted Atrantil to combine it with the right combo that really us and Microbiome Labs work diligently to see which piece together. And as you can see, we've gone through several different bacteria strains. We still don't say all the words exactly as it is. I still have to squint when I read it because seeing Bacillus 3 different times and then Subtilis, coagulans, and clausal.
It seems super daunting to sit there and say, this is why. But I wanted this to be sciencey because we do have a lot of healthcare practitioners that listen. And I wanted it to be sciencey so that you understand that specifically. But the bottom line is it's called Mega Trio. We got Mega Trio plus Atrantil equals Atrantil-PRO. That's all you have to know. And if you're a non-healthcare practitioner and they go, what's Mega Trio? Go, I don't know, but it works together better.
Protect your gut and brain like a pro.
Oh, I like that. Did you just cut my 3-minute commercial into just a 5-second sound bit?
We just did it.
So if you like this or have more questions, hopefully you have a ton more questions, contact us. We're on YouTube. You can make comments on YouTube. Please subscribe there. We're on all the typical platforms. We do enjoy it when people leave nice iTunes reviews. And then otherwise just contact us so that we can communicate and talk and find out what more you want to learn about, because I'm still learning, and that's why I'm kind of geeking out. So
like and share us with your doctor. If you're a doctor, share us with another doctor or your PA or your nurse practitioner. Just share so that people know. We just want to help people feel better and not have.
Can doctors only share to other healthcare practitioners? You said you could share it with other doctors, PAs, nurse practitioners, RNs.
Oh yeah, I mean
they could share to anybody, right?
You can share to anybody.
There we go.
I just learned. You can. We're all learning. You just shared with me that we can share more.
I don't want you to, doctor shame me if I can. I would love to share this with you, but Eric said I can't.
Yeah, that was not the point.
Share with your patients.
Yeah, definitely share with your patients. All right, that's going to do it for episode number 68.
And if somebody's like really creative and can somehow figure out how I tune this, how I shrink this to 3 minutes for a video, I will give you a free Atrantil-PRO. I'll give you more than that. I'll give you Atrantil-PRO, real or regular Atrantil, and a bottle of CBD.
And a glove.
And one glove.
All right.
If you want to do this experiment, I'll send you the whole box as long as you know how to explain it.
I think that's episode 68.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all so much for tuning into the Gut Check Project. Please like and share, and we will see y'all on 69.